we're going to look at how to create an adventure game, which really is a non-linear animation. Okay, and we're going to use ActionScript to create the interactivity. So I'm going to show you the example first of all of what you're going to create. So Control, Test Movie, Flash Professional. Okay, so this is going to be our start screen. We'll have a play button. Now again, I've just, in terms of how it looks and the structure of it, I've just kept it simple. Okay, so we can concentrate on creating the basic structure. You could have an animation on here, sound, all sorts of things going on. An introductory animation, cutscene. Press play. This takes us to scene 1. Now scene 1 could involve some kind of animation involving the character, and then the character has to make a choice basically to move from one scene to another. So you can have more than 2 choices, but I've just kept it to 2. One basically means live, which continues through the game. The other one means game over, and the game dies or the game finishes. If we choose live, okay, we go to scene 2, and again we have another scene of the adventure, and continue that way. If we go back and rewind, if he makes the game over decision, the wrong decision, we go to another scene again that could contain some kind of animation of the character, dying or whatever. Again, that's your choice, but we give the player the option to retry either from the beginning of the scene or the beginning of the game. Okay, so we go back to the beginning of the game there. Okay, so that's the basic structure. Now I'm going to show you how to make that, and then we can get that in place. Okay, so this next stage we're going to set up the game now. We're going to start by creating layers. Now we're going to create 4 layers. So we'll create the 4 layers, and we're going to call the top one actions, so that's where the action script is going to go, and then the next one can be night. Now that's really where the main animation is going to go for my example, which just contains a simple animation of a night. Obviously the more complex your animation is, the more layers you can create for that. This is going to be the play button. Okay, and then just bear with me, properly. It's the play button, and then the other buttons, could call them the choice buttons, or live, die buttons. We're going on this bottom layer here. Okay, now. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with the start screen, which is shown you here, which contains the title of the game and then the play button. Okay, so with the text tool, put in the title. Okay, and then we're going to make a simple button again. Keeping things simple at this stage, not worrying about the design of it and how it looks so much, more about the actual mechanics of the game and the code. Okay, so we've got our title. I'm going to create a simple button, so I'll just create a simple shape, rectangular shape. I'll put play text on top of that. Okay. Down. It's too big. We'll scale it down here. That'll do. Move that over. We've got our basic play button. Select the whole thing, the text and the shape. Right click, convert to symbol. Choose button from the type pop down, so it's button type symbol and call it play. Keep the naming obvious and simple. So that's our button setup. So if we look back at the example, we've got this kind of structure here. So we've got a series of keyframes at frame 10 here. So I'm going to create those now. So a series of keyframes at frame 10. Shift click, right click, insert blank keyframes. Now we don't want our play button anywhere other than on the first frame, so I'm going to insert a blank keyframe there. So we've just got our play button at the beginning there. Okay, now the next thing I think to think about, so we're just putting the graphics in, the visual aspect in at the moment, is the knight himself. Now he's actually a 2-frame animation there, so we've got the first part there and then the second part on the second keyframe there where he lifts his sword. So I am not going to draw out the knight again, I'm just going to use, and you can do this, just use simple shapes. So I could, again, if we, another rectangle, sorry, this is a lesson here. Now I'm not watching my layers here. Make sure you put things on the correct layer. So if I put in and insert a blank keyframe at frame 2 of the knight layer, okay, and then that's where my rectangle needs to be, yeah, you see there on the timeline. So the rectangle's there. Now the second frame of the animation is here. So here I am going to create something just slightly different, so I'll maybe a different shape. So if I choose a circle and drag out a circle. Okay. And that is our simple animation right there, yeah. So refer back to my original. So the other thing we need, so the other assets we need, so it's an important word to remember this, assets. Assets refers basically to anything that, any content that you're putting into the game. So whether it's buttons, movie clips, animations, sound, we refer to them all as assets. So the last assets we need to put in are the live and game over buttons. Okay, so, and they go on this last keyframe here. So if we go to the end of the last keyframe on the buttons layer, the live or die buttons layer here, and I will create the new buttons. So I'll stick with the rectangle again, or square maybe, and second square. And then if we put some text just to differentiate them. So we've got live 1 and game over 1. Okay, so that tells us the difference. Again, it might be a bit big, so you can just change the size there. Okay, so those are our buttons. So at the moment they are just graphics. So I need to turn them into buttons again. So if you remember, that is with the black arrow here. Select the whole thing, right click, convert to symbol, call them live 1. Make sure the type is button again like before. Okay, and then the same with this one. Right click, convert to symbol, game over 1, and check the button there. Okay, so those are set up. If we refer back to our original, I'm just going to rearrange my layers so they're in the same order here. They're actually in a different order, just to, so we can get the visual comparison there. It's starting to look the same, isn't it? Okay, so that's all the assets in place now. Next we're going to look at adding the script to make this interactive. so what we're going to do now is add the interactivity using ActionScript. First of all, we want to make this play button work, and it's going to link, when we press it, it's going to link from frame 1 to frame 2 and then play through to frame 10. Okay, so now the thing with ActionScript 3 is you can only add it to frames actually, which actually simplifies things, because before, you know, you could have, with ActionScript 2 you could have script on symbols and on frames, and sometimes it was difficult to keep track of where the script was. Now it can only be placed on a frame. So if we want to add script to this button, we can just click on keyframe 1 here. Now we're going to use, and this is a great new innovation with CS3, something called code snippets. Code snippets are in the ActionScript tab next to the ActionScript panel here, code snippets. They're nested into folders. The one we're concerned with first of all is timeline navigation. Now before we even put any script, add any script to make the button work, we want to stop this needle from playing all the way through. We want it to stop at frame 1. Very simply, to do that, if we double click on stop at this frame, that will immediately add that script, which is a simple piece of script there, to the ActionScript panel, also with an explanation of exactly what that script does in grey here, which can be useful as a reference. So it tells you exactly what it does there. So we've stopped at frame 1. Now we want to add underneath that, so if we click at the end of the piece of script there, just press enter a couple of times, we're going to add a second piece of ActionScript, again using code snippets. This piece of ActionScript is go to frame and stop. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to then send the frame, go to frame and play, should I say. We want to send the needle to frame 2 and then tell it to play to frame 10. Okay, and then stop at the end here. So again, it will place this on this frame here. So if we can just click on that frame there, if we select click to go to frame and play, little oversight there. We don't select the frame, we select the object, but it places the script on the frame. Sorry, a little oversight there. So we select the button, so it knows where we're applying the script, and then click to go to frame and play. Double click on that. Now what it does is it suggests something called an instance name for the button, because the button itself is stored in our library. What we see on the stage is just an instance of what's stored in the library. So it suggests a name, button 1. We'll give it our own name, so particularly when you're dealing with a lot of symbols, clear naming is extremely useful. So we'll call it play button. Okay, that's our instance name. Sorry, another little oversight. Instead of the white space in between, we just put an underscore in, and it should accept that. Okay, now it's placed the script in there. Again, the script itself is here. In grey, the description of what the script does. Okay, again, really useful innovation in CS6. So this is the script here. Should be reasonably self-evident. So we've got the play button, so that's the name we gave it, that's the actual name of the object. It basically listens for an event in relation to this symbol. So our event is going to be a click on the mouse, a mouse event, and then the action will be go to and play from a specified frame. Now the bit that we need to change is the specified frame. At the moment it's telling it to go to and play frame 5, so it would jump to frame 5 and then play. We want it to jump to frame 2 and play. So all we have to do is change the 5 to a 2. Okay. You can also do a little syntax check, particularly if you're changing a lot of the script. Syntax check is the blue tick here. Tick on that and it will tell you compiler errors none. Okay, so we're all clear there. So that is the script that makes that work. Okay, if we check back at our original here, now as I said, we've got this script at the beginning here which we've just applied. Also at the end here there is some more script which we're coming to now, which deals with these two buttons. Yeah. Okay, so if we move the needle now to the end of the block here to frame 10, we're going to apply some script to these two buttons, so live 1 and game over 1. Okay, now again this script itself is actually on the frame. So again we want to stop action, and this time we're going to use again similar to what we did before with the previous, the play button, but rather than sending the needle to another frame, we're going to send it to another scene. Okay, so I'll just look at my example here now. Again, keep your naming obvious. So you can see here this is applied to this live 1 button here. So again, this should be familiar here. It's listening for an event. Click on this button and then it's going to go to, when you click, go to scene 4. Now what I've actually done, if we look here, what I'm actually doing here, we can actually ignore where it says scene 4 here at the moment. The important bit, now if you read here, it says replace scene 3 with the name of the scene you would like to play. Replace 1 with the frame number you would like the movie to play from in that particular scene. Now, although it says scene 4 here, initially it said scene 4 here as well. Okay, now this is the important bit. This is where it goes to. Okay, now I've changed that because I called my next scene live 1. So that's the name of the scene. Don't worry about that. Yeah, that's just talking about the type of action. The actual name of the scene that it looked for is here. Okay, and the frame, like it says frame 1. So we want to basically, when we click on live 1, we want to go to a new scene that we're going to create called live 1, and we're going to frame 1 of live 1. Okay, so again, once you've got a grip of this, got your head around this, it's a really powerful piece of script to be able to use, and obviously with practice through the game using this kind of non-linear linking from scenes to frames, you should have no problem with it. So we're on this frame 10 here, so I'm going to start with our live 1 button here, and I'm going to go to code snippets. We're going to stop first of all, so we're going to stop the needle at this frame here, and then I'll press enter a few times just to separate it out, makes it easier to read. Go back to code snippets, and this time if we look in the timeline navigation, we're going to click to go to scene and play. Okay, click to go to scene and play, we'll use this one. So double click on that. Sorry, make sure the button is selected, made the same mistake again. Make sure the button's selected, click to go to scene and play. We'll suggest a name, we'll call the button live 1. Remember the underscore, if you put any spaces in there it won't accept it. Now, so this should make what I was saying before a bit clearer, to be honest, because it felt like it was going around the houses a bit with that. Right. So, in grey, click to go to scene and play, click on the specified symbol instance, plays the movie from the specified scene and frame. Okay, instructions, step 1, play scene 3, yeah, with, now we're going to call our scene live 1. I'm going to put the underscore in, so live underscore 1, and we want to go to frame 1 of that, so we can leave that the same. Okay, now that's the only bit we need to change. Okay, it says replace 1 with the frame number. Okay, we're keeping the frame number the same. All this up here, don't worry about this. Yeah, click to go to scene. We don't need to change that to click to go to live 1. We can leave that the same. Just these two bits here. Okay, get to right to the end of the script, make sure you get to the end of the closing bracket here, or parenthesis, or whatever you want to call it, and then press enter a few times. Again, I like to just separate the blocks of script out so they're easy to read. So we're going to apply exactly the same script to the game over button. Okay, go back to code snippets, click to go to scene and play. Now we're going to call this one game underscore over underscore 1. Okay, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Alright, and this is where you see now repetition, a few repeats of this and it starts to get pretty clear. So again, all we're doing, we're sticking with frame 1, we're just replacing scene 3 with game underscore over underscore 1. Alright, and that's the scene we're linking to. Okay, so that's all set up. Now what we need to do is create these two scenes, live 1, game over 1. Okay, so if I just jump back to my original example. Okay, now those two scenes are nested in here. If we click on the edit scene button here, you see live 1, game over 1. Now what we need to do is we need to actually go to open the scene panel. The scene panel, we get to that by going to Window, Other Panels and Scene here. Okay, and here, this little button here, which is like the new layer button, we can create as many scenes as we want, new scenes. So if we go back to our one we're working on here, I'm going to create two new scenes there. Okay, we've got live underscore 1 and we've got game over underscore 1. Okay, I think I gave this, yeah. So if we name all the scenes as well, so if we call scene 1 start, that's our start screen basically, isn't it? Okay, so we've got our 3 scenes set up here. Now we look at live 1 here, which I showed you before. I've added, just so you get the idea of this kind of chain of events. So we go to live 1 scene, where again we can have some kind of animation happening that continues to tell the story of the game, and then we have a choice of some sort. Now again, we'll talk a bit more about the choices, but it could be, for example, you know, you could click on live 2 and say the character is trapped in a castle. You go to live 2 and the character climbs out of a window and escapes from the castle, or trapped in a dungeon. He goes to game over 2 and the character opens a door and goes out and falls down into the moat or something and drowns. Yeah, you'd have an animation showing that. So that's how that works. So basically, in scene live 1, we're just going to create 2 more buttons just to illustrate that. So live 2 and game over 2. I'll go back. Okay, so we go to live 1, and again, just good practice at creating buttons. And once you've made this, you can use this as a basic structure to work on top of and build on top of. So I'm going to create 2 very simple new buttons. Change my colour and fill, but that doesn't matter. So that could be live 2. Change the colour of that so you won't be able to see it. Okay, and game over 2. Let's come back to black. Change that to. Okay, and those we turn into buttons. Again, good practice this. So select, right click, convert to symbol, live to button. Very literal names is always good. Okay, same with this one. Okay, game over to button. Okay, so that is, and we'll call it. I always find it just helps to give everything a name, okay, because when you're creating a complex game with a series of scenes, it's good to just have very, you know, you can quickly work out where you are. So this is live 1 is the scene, yeah, that we've linked to. Okay, and then so that's basically where we link to, and we'll now go to game over 1. Now if you remember, game over 1 slightly different because we also created in there a retry button. Oh, I'll tell you what else I missed there. If we go back to live 1, we need a stop action, don't we? Well, actually there's only one frame at the moment, so we don't, because it will just stop there. It can't play anywhere else. If there were more frames, we would need a stop action there. Always get in the habit anyway, any new scene you create an actions layer ready for any script. So I'll just put a stop action on there anyway. So we'll click on the frame, code snippets. We're in timeline navigation. For this part of the adventure game, it's all about really timeline navigation and controlling that, most of it. So we'll put a stop action on there. Okay. And then we go to game over 1, where, if I just show you the example again, we have a stop and we have a retry button. Okay, now the retry button uses the click to go to scene script again, and just sends it back to the start scene. Now remember, this is a good example. We're not going back to frame 1, actually we're going back to the beginning of the first scene, which is frame 2, if you remember. If we go, go to the start scene, we could go back to frame 1, which is there, but instead I'm sending it back to frame 2, which is there. Yeah, so the beginning of that very first scene. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So go back. Okay, and we've got, sorry, I'm jumping around here a bit. So game over 1. So we've just got the title and we've got the retry button because we don't need any more. We're not going any further. Yeah. So again, title in. Over 1 and the button, and retry button, okay. So again, select the whole thing, right click, convert to symbol, call it retry, make sure it's a button, so in fact call it retry button just to be absolutely literal. Okay, we'll create an actions layer again. Now really we need to just call that retry button as well, because there would be some, when you come to create your game, there would be some kind of animation on here as well, which would be on another layer. But I don't want to do that for the example. So select the button, code snippets. Sorry, we need the stop action first of all, so I'll select the frame and stop at this frame, select that. So you see that, it should be familiar now. Press enter a few times. Now select the button, back to code snippets, and click to go to scene, and play. Okay, and we'll call the instance retry. Remember, we need an instance name for the button, which again we'll keep simple. Sorry, I made that mistake again of leaving a space, so I put an underscore in there to get around that. Okay, now we want it to go. Now remember, the only bits we're worried about here are these bits, aren't we? So we want it to go to frame 2, and that's frame 2 of the start scene, isn't it? Yeah. This naming is extremely important. It has to match up with what's here exactly. So if it's a capital S, if you put a lowercase s, it won't work. All right. Remember, computers think very literally. Yeah. So it's going to be exactly the same. So frame 2 of the start scene. So that's okay. You can try the syntax again if you want, just to be sure. No problems there. Okay. So I think that's our basic structure set up now. I'm just going to check back my original just to be sure. Okay, I think everything's in place now. I think we're going to test it. Testing again when you're making a game is particularly important. Continuous testing to make sure everything, all the interactivity works. So if we test movie to test all the scenes, you can test individual scenes as well. Test movie, and then we just click on Flash Professional there. Okay, so we've got our play button, which worked there. So that linked to the first scene, which played through to here. And we have our choice here. We choose the correct choice, live 1. That takes us to the live 1 scene. Yeah. And then obviously we haven't put any script on these 2 buttons, but then you could continue on to the next scene using that. So if I rewind, go through again, if I make the wrong choice, we go to game over 1, game's over, and we've got the option to retry this first scene. Okay, so that's set up now. That's the basic structure.